Drugs in your car. You are done.
Check who I am first.
You know, I still get chills thinking back to that afternoon in downtown Atlanta, when Officer Derek Harlan came storming up to me like I was some lowlife boosting cars in broad daylight. In my crisp suit, stepping out of my sleek black SUV, minding my own business after a long day at the office. He didn't hesitate, just barked out, "Hands off that ride. Boy, this ain't your property," shoving me hard against the hood, twisting my arm like I was resisting, even though I hadn't said a word yet. And right there on Peachtree Street with folks stopping to gawk, phones out, capturing every humiliating second. It was one of those moments that hits you deep, you know, where prejudice just explodes out of nowhere, turning a simple parking spot into a battlefield. And little did he know, he was picking a fight with the wrong guy. Dr. Elias Grant, the head of the National Justice Bureau, the very man who'd spent years cracking down on exactly this kind of crooked cop behavior. It all started earlier that day, or really, it had been building for years, this tension between street-level policing and the federal reforms I'd been pushing from my desk in the federal building, just a few miles away. Reforms born out of my own experiences growing up in a rough neighborhood in Detroit, where cops like Harlan saw every black kid as a suspect, not a future leader. I'd risen through the ranks, from a beat cop myself to advisor to attorneys general, and now as director, I was the one drafting policies for mandatory body cams, bias training, and oversight that had guys like Harlan grumbling in their locker rooms, calling it Washington meddling, or worse, without ever realizing the face behind it was someone who'd walked in their shoes and then some. That morning, I was in my home office in Buckhead, sipping coffee, scrolling through reports on precinct complaints, seeing patterns that made my blood boil. Disproportionate stops, planted evidence, careers derailed over nothing but skin color. My wife, Lena, poked her head in, reminding me about our son Jamal's basketball game that evening. "Don't get buried in those files, Elias. Family's waiting." And I promised I'd wrap up early, head to a community town hall anonymously, just to listen, feel the pulse of the streets I was trying to fix. Meanwhile, across town in the precinct, Harlan was venting to his partner, Ramirez, about how these Fed suits think they know better than us grunts out here risking our necks. His locker plastered with faded photos of busts that always seemed to feature young black faces. A stack of dismissed complaints gathering dust because, well, the system protected its owner, so he thought. He'd been investigated half a dozen times for rough handling, racial slurs caught on tape, but each time, it vanished into bureaucracy, leaving him bolder, more resentful, targeting upscale areas where successful folks like me didn't belong. In his twisted view, driven by this deep-seated envy mixed with old-school bigotry he'd picked up from his dad, a retired cop who drilled into him that order meant keeping certain people in their place. That afternoon, he was on patrol, ignoring real calls to pull over luxury cars driven by black professionals 4 in a row that day, each one harassed, searched, released with a warning that felt like a threat, his dash cam rolling, but rarely reviewed, making him feel untouchable. I parked outside the community center on Edgewood Avenue, 15 minutes early as always, adjusting my tie, grabbing my briefcase full of notes on reform initiative stats on arrest disparities that would shock anyone with a conscience, thinking about how tonight's talk on building trust between feds and locals was ironic, since I was the invisible architect of the changes officers hated. And that's when Harlan's cruiser screeched up, his eyes locking on me like I'd tripped some internal alarm. Black man, nice car, confident stride, boom, prejudice on autopilot. "Step away from the vehicle, now," he yelled, slamming his door, marching over with that swagger cops get when they think they've got the upper hand. And before I could even respond, he had me pinned, patting me down roughly, his voice loud for the gathering crowd. "Think you can just roll up in a stolen ride like this? In this neighborhood? Boy, you picked the wrong day." I kept my cool. Years in law enforcement taught me that saying evenly, "Officer, this is my vehicle, you can run the plates." But he just laughed, a mocking bark that echoed off the buildings, yanking my wallet out, holding my ID up like it was fake. "Dr. Elias Grant, huh? Doctor of what? Online scams. Address in Buckhead, yeah, right? No way you earned that legit." His words dripping with sarcasm, mired in that resentment toward anyone who'd climbed out of the boxes he put people in, especially a black man who'd made it big while he stagnated on patrol, blaming affirmative action or whatever excuse fit his narrative. The crowd grew, phones flashing, a mix of outrage and whispers, and I felt that familiar knot in my gut, the humiliation not just for me, but for every brother who'd been through this. The way it chips away at your soul, makes you question if all your achievements mean nothing against one biased glance. His partner, Ramirez, pulled up then, eyeing the scene warily, recognizing something off in my demeanor, the calm authority that didn't fit a thief's profile. But Harlan was in full performance mode, tossing my papers around. And that's when he did it, sly as a fox, palming a small bag from his belt, slipping it under the seat during his search. "Well, looky here," he crowed, holding it up triumphantly, the white powder glinting in the sun. "Coke? Intent to distribute? Game over, Doc." My blood ran cold, not fear, but fury, knowing exactly what this was, a plant, motivated by his need to win these encounters, to justify his stops. To feed that ego bruised by years of seeing others succeed where he felt entitled. "That's not mine, officer, and you know it," I said, staring him down, but he just smirked. "They never are, always some story cuffs on, let's go." In the back of the cruiser, hands bound, watching the street fade as he drove me to the station, I let my mind race, not panicking, but planning, my phone buzzing with missed calls from my deputy, Alicia Torres, who knew my schedule and would trigger protocol soon. At the precinct, the desk sergeant did a double take during booking, whispering to a colleague, but Harlan paraded me like a trophy. "Caught a big fish today, boys thief with a PhD in BS. I stated my occupation plainly, Director, National Justice Bureau, and he howled, "Sure, and I'm the president, call your imaginary boss, hotshot." I made my one call, quiet and precise. "This is Grant, in custody at Midtown Precinct, activate Protocol Alpha," hanging up as he snatched the phone, oblivious to the storm brewing. That's when things shifted. You see the reaction, the turnaround that made this more than just another bad stop. Federal SUVs rolled up outside, agents in suits storming in, my deputy Torres leading the charge, her face thunderous as she confronted the watch commander. "You have Director Grant in holding? The man reforming your entire department." Harlan was in the break room, bragging, took down a slick one. Justice don't care about color when they hauled him into the office, and oh, the look on his face when Torres laid it out. "That's my boss, the head of the NJB, the guy whose policies you've been bitching about for months." He stammered. "Impossible, he was stealing. I found drugs." But they pulled up the footage as body cam. Ramirez's, a dozen civilian videos showing the plant clear as day, his hands fumbling the bag, his slurs, his assumptions crumbling under the weight of evidence. He went pale, legs buckling, as they stripped his badge right there, suspending him on the spot, and I was released with apologies tumbling out. But I didn't just walk away, no. I faced him, rubbing my wrists, saying calmly, "Officer Harlan, you didn't arrest a criminal tonight. You exposed yourself. Your biases that stem from whatever hole in your life makes you hate seeing success in faces that don't match yours." He mumbled, "I didn't know who you were," and I shot back. "That's the point. You shouldn't need my title to see me as human, to follow the rules you swore to uphold." It hit him then, the resentment boiling over into regret, but too late. The investigation launched that night, my team digging into his records, uncovering a pattern that went back years, hundreds of arrests, mostly black men in nice cars, drugs found suspiciously, complaints buried because the precinct protected its top performer, all fueled by Harlan's personal demons. A divorce where his ex left for a successful black colleague, a promotion denied he blamed on diversity hires, turning his badge into a weapon of petty revenge. We built the case methodically, victim statements flooding intake. Marcus Hale, a surgeon pulled over outside his clinic after a marathon shift, drugs planted, missing surgeries that nearly cost lives, his kids traumatized, Berlina's old friend. Professor Tyrone Brooks stopped repeatedly commuting to Emory, his students petitioning for escorts, all because Harlan saw intruders in upscale spots, his envy masking as protecting the community. I interviewed him personally in that stark federal room, him in orange, me across the table. "How many, Derek? How many innocents did you frame to feel powerful?" He broke, admitting a few times when I knew they were guilty of something, but I pressed, guilty of succeeding, of driving while black, extracting confessions that painted a web of corruption, involving a handful of other officers who'd looked away or joined in, all stemming from a toxic culture where accountability was a joke. The trial was electric, courtroom packed with victims, media, Harlan at the defense table looking shattered as Judge Elena Vasquez laid into him. Your prejudice didn't just bend the law, it shattered lives. Eroded trust in the badge. He pled guilty to a slew of charges, rights violations, tampering, conspiracy getting 10 years federal time, restitution hitting 6 figures, banned for life from policing, his cooperation flipping on accomplices leading to more convictions, reforms sweeping 20 departments. But it wasn't just punishment. I chaired the Grant Commission, pushing nationwide change scams everywhere, databases tracking misconduct, training that forced officers to confront their shadows, and Ramirez, who tried to intervene that night, got promoted, leading sessions on speaking up, turning his guilt into action. A year on, standing at that same spot on Peachtree, a plaque now they're honoring victims of bias. I spoke at a summit where cops and communities mixed, sharing stories, stats showing complaints down 70%, trust inching up, but I paused, thinking, is it enough? We fixed some, but what about the Harlans still out there, the systems that bred them? It's messy, real change always is, leaving questions hanging. Was his downfall justice, or just a band-aid on deeper wounds? Did my reforms go far enough, or are we still blind to everyday prejudices? Hey, if this hits home, drop a comment below. What do you think? Was Harlan a rotten apple or symptom of a poison barrel? Have you faced something similar, seen bias play out in your community? Share your take on justice, right and wrong. How we fix these divides. Your stories could spark the next wave of change. So like, subscribe, and let's keep the conversation going, because silence lets it fester, and together, we can demand better.